Okay, let's get this over with because, of course, I have other matters and other realms that daily need my attention. So, all right, you might ask, you know, wait a minute, especially with this particular, the picture in front of you, you may ask that, wait, what is this? Why am I looking at a black hole? Black, what's a black hole doing here? Or some of you, of course, that particular icon resting upon next to that crater, next to that galaxy rubble, and next to the black hole as well. You might ask that, what is he talking about? In some ways, wrestling is kind of booming right now. It may some of you even may be, telling or desperately or trying to force me to believe that wrestling is at its best and it's thriving. So what are you talking about right now? You have no clue of what you are speaking upon yourself. Wrestling is in the best state that it could possibly be, and in some ways, to which I will say and agree upon. Especially when it comes to the bloodline. You may have certain, at least to an extent, that they can be entertaining, such as a MJF or a Dominic Mysterio. In some areas, ways there are counterparts. There are things that are still going on right now that depends on you and on what you may find that you can gravitate towards and that you can be entertained by, whatever that case may be. But as you see, it's a title. As you see today, it's pretty simple of what I'm trying to actually say to you. The thumbnail is clear as day. No psyche question about that. Like, it's pretty clear what I'm trying to tell to y'all. Wrestling, or no, wrestlers are trash. Wrestling today sucks because wrestlers are trash. Or wrestlers suck because themselves, they purely are in utter trash. Yeah, just like what I got finished, probably a day ago, yesterday, when it comes to MJF. It's been pretty easy, especially a week, when it comes to, it's been a pretty easy week, especially if you're someone that is speaking on, if I may come out and say here, because I know some of y'all, just like myself, watch Millennial. I want to say, I want to come out and shout him out too. He's a very I never got the chance to too, but he's a very great personality. He has a channel as well. Millennial Smart. Y'all should check him out. That's why I put, if you don't see it now, you just you should go to the section to to my channel, of course, and then go to where it says me and others, and you'll pretty easy to find. You'll see Millennial Smart because he's a great channel. He has brings up a lot of points, and he's very logical, which I very much admire. And it's been a pretty easy week, if you want to say, because I of course I do not come recklessly. I'm not coming. It's not like I'm coming out here and saying that. What are you talking about? Wrestlers are wrestlers are, they're trash, and they're very, very sensitive in today's era. If I may correct myself, in today's era, wrestlers are trash. And it's not like it's always been that way. When you look at it, of course, when you look at someone like a Rock or an Austin or a Kurt Angle, a Shawn Michaels, of course, and Triple H too. And a John Cena. Everybody has their flaws. Obviously, no human of any kind is perfect. Whether ethnicity or culture, nobody is perfect. But here's the thing: you want to know what the difference is between the wrestlers of then and then the wrestlers of now? Here's what they didn't do. Because of course it's still because of wrestling, obviously, being that it's a part of the entertainment business, which it still is. I mean, there is, if you want to consider wrestling, that's good by you. But I've said this before myself, just like plenty of others have said that agree, that have my certain mindset when it comes to wrestling as a whole. Yeah, like in a way it is a sport, but when it comes to wrestling, if you want to say the wrestling in the mainstream, of course, when it comes to the WWE, they are, at least used to be, they're mainstream, they're entertainment. It's not strictly just a sport. So back to, as I was trying to before I skidded off before, what makes the wrestlers back then different from the wrestlers of today? And like I said, yeah, they have their flaws, but what makes them different? They weren't on as if, I mean, you still, like, social media, of course, but it wasn't like, because you still had, it's not like you still had the internet, and it's not like you still had forums, it's not like you can still post pictures to tell who that wrestler was if they made an account. So it's not like, say, especially because, I mean, you would probably still have someone like Chris Jericho probably be online still acting like an utter and complete idiot. Probably like some wrestlers that still go as far as back as that. Wrestlers of his caliber, of his name, of having his name, would still act, a bit devious and childish. But for a majority, because like I said, it's not like you had computers, it's not like you had forums to talk. It's not like you had the internet back then, because the internet was just starting out. It wasn't as big as it is, and involved in everyday society as you see it today. You didn't see a Stone Cold. You didn't see Stone Cold just like having bad. That's the thing. Also, like these wrestlers have too many. They have too much time. Too much time. Like I said, that's not that it's a bad thing, but it's like the time that they should be working towards, or at least being to themselves. They use that, of course, like your typical, like everyday, that everybody that barely has a life outside of, they do what everybody else does, and they completely live on Twitter, and they have fragile mindsets. They can't handle criticism. They can't handle what anybody says, being in their type of work. And it's like you didn't have a Stone Cold all of a sudden just coming at and just straight up blasting and telling just telling a regular person, of course, in the wrestling audience, that they should that they should STF you, and you completely getting all up in their face, or on Twitter too, just completely. Or going on live, Instagram live, or somewhere, or in an interview talking about you should why are you asking me these questions, or and they just like completely shut them down aggressively and ignorantly. You didn't have Undertaker or Shawn Michaels too. You didn't like hear about them in public or whatever, just straight up, just whether it comes to another, like I said, it's not like they did interviews, but it's like you didn't have them straight up in public, just straight up running down, just like they almost like if they had, their personality was just straight up, just thin skinned, and they weren't running down when it comes to another company or another individual that may not be their coworker anymore. And they weren't doing any of that. They weren't acting recklessly. They weren't doing any of that. Which is why I agree with also the statement. Also, like I said, kayfabe, like I said, it's not coming back. But I know that's not the topic of discussion today, but kayfabe is not coming back. So in some ways, I can kind of agree with wrestlers of the old, whichever generation that they come from, like an Undertaker, for example. He's not big on wrestlers exposed to the business, and like pretty much snipping when it comes to the characters, and wrestlers just basically acting. And that's because actors are very different. Wrestlers are very different from actors. They have a full movie or whatever TV show. They don't. It's not like they have to keep up and act. But wrestlers, yeah. I mean, I get that, but it's like I would say to a certain extent, like Like here's what I would say here, because you have, of course, you have, because which is why I agree with that also as well, because someone like Johnny Gargano, Alexa Bliss, even like somebody like a MJF, as he's getting as popular as he is, and Seth Rollins, they act very childish and they act very juvenile, and almost like as they as someone as a little kid that would be in like middle school or high school right now. A little schoolgirl or schoolboy, how they would they act like someone as that of that nature, and this is the type of behavior that they're taking to the internet, and this is how they're acting. It's like you look at it, it's like, I mean, it's like, because it's getting to a point now where it's just common, but it's like where you look at it, especially being a wrestling admirer as for as long as you have. But it's like you look at it, it's like damn, it's like, are they serious right now? Like, why are they acting like this? Like last said, if you can't handle to which comes to what I'm gonna say right now, it's like, if you can't, it's pretty simple. May not be, but in actuality, but it's like, because of course you're a person. That person is a person, and they have the right to feel and address when they're uncomfortable or not. But it's like, if you can't handle the simple fact of when it comes to somebody just simply just making a criticism, it's not like they're talking about your family and how your family should should be prosecuted, or you're bad, terrible people, and you shouldn't be on like you should be vilified in front of millions of people. Like, no, it's not like they're doing that. It's just and that's how these wrestlers take it. They're like taking it like people are coming after their personal lives. They're threatening their way of living. I mean, yeah, they because there's still a job, but it's like it's basic of criticism. It's like when it comes to somebody speaking on them professionally, like, it's not like they're taking a knife to your throat. Like, these people, just as Lord Cosmo and myself, even though I don't we're not people, those like people are not, it's not like people are coming at you in a threatening way, whether the case may be, if they're being totally ignorant or disrespectful. It's still criticism at the end of it all. And obviously, like, if you can't handle when it comes to being in this business or industry, then why are you here? You obviously shouldn't be in it. So, yeah. So, like I said, also, it's like I very much understand when it comes to Undertaker, when it comes to kayfabe, which, yeah, like, you shouldn't be allowed to. Which I'll say right here, you shouldn't be allowed, like, wrestlers, because it's to a point now where it's like it's almost a joke. Where a wrestler, it's almost like a laughing stock when you look at these wrestlers, because they use, like, as much as they use social media, like they make themselves look like a total, complete, childish. And it's like they look to they hold social media as a part of their lives. As if that's their home, like, the home, they're, as if that's their actual house that they're living in. So it's like, I feel like wrestlers, especially going forward, that there should be in the contract as well, at least to some punishments. You shouldn't be allowed, to a certain extent, they shouldn't be allowed to use social media to a certain extent, because especially for what they do out of sorts. And it's like what you see Alexa Bliss, because like I said, yeah, she does, yeah, like some of it is warranted, because what she deals with, pretty much on a daily basis. But still, she still gets out of hand, and she still lets comments get to her. Someone's like a MJF too. I mean, it may seem cool to the casual or typical wrestler eye, but it's like still, he still goes out. You could tell which is real and which is not. And it's like he still goes out of his way. Like I said before, like, that's not a heel. Like, how are you supposed to carry yourself? And you looked up to such as wrestlers like CM Punk. I mean, he still kind of acts the same way, but I mean, not to is what MJF, because like that's what wrestlers do nowadays. not only do like that's what they like, they come at the audience. You know, like how like the same thing a company says. Like they try to blame the audience. They try to blame the fans for their shortcomings, their mistakes, because of people, pushing back and saying that this isn't what the franchise should be going towards, or whatever. This isn't how wrestlers should act. And it's like these wrestlers, they act like school. They act like children, and it makes no sense whatsoever. So it's like that's like you, and then when you like come to see it, like you wonder why when these wrestlers, they wonder why the position that they're in, and people also wonder why that wrestling is in the state that it's in, because this plays a very big contributing factor. You wonder why wrestling is in the state that it's in, or the wrestlers, are not as big, not as larger as life as a Hulk Hogan or a Rock, a Austin was. It's simply because that it's not like that. Whether it's not they're not making, because it all still falls that it's not just the company, it's not just WWE. They have their fault too. It's also, you have to also take, like, wrestlers, they fall in that category as well. Like, you're in the position that you're in, you're not as getting as over as you think you are, that you may, because of course, all because, it's to their generation, all because it's a trend now to be a troll. It's a trend to basically, be a bully on the internet and just act, chaotic. That doesn't, warrant the way you act on Twitter, at least, especially in wrestling. Like I said, that's not how a heel should act. Just because you have social media and to your disposal, and just because you can, because of who you are and how much of how many eyes that you have on you already. I said, especially in that context, at least in that context, it should be used. I said what, because I also want to use this in the future. Social media, it should be used strictly to further a story. It should be used to benefit wrestling. It shouldn't be used for the latter. Like, these wrestlers shouldn't be using it. Obviously, whatever it wants to. Like I said, to a certain extent when it comes to their personal use, but it shouldn't be used in what they're doing, how they're using social media. It shouldn't be used for that. Basically, as childish banter. It shouldn't be used that, and antics, childish antics. It shouldn't be used for that at all. So, like I said, when it comes to somebody like an Undertaker and what he says, and that he said he doesn't like how wrestlers, of course, being soft, and how wrestlers, they don't like the latest thing he said, how they're just straight up breaking kayfabe, basically making wrestlers almost complete, even more open to be laughed at now, because look at how they're acting. Even somebody like a MJF or Seth Rollins, look at how they're acting. And it's like, how could you also, because it's like you're given a reason for, even more so now, wrestling is just looked upon as, you still watch wrestling? And it's like, I'm a wrestling admirer, and that just pisses me off, because, of course, even from my own family, like, for the longest, and it's like, of course, also from peers as well, got shit. And now it's just like, now it's an open free-for-all. It's like they have a reason now to shit all over, what you love. And it's like, now, because, like, look at the state of where wrestling is. It's almost like, how Star Wars, like how Star Wars and Call of Duty fans act now. And it's like, you sit back and laugh, and it's like, are these guys serious? Do they know where the state is? Do they know the state of their franchises and communities, where they're heading now? And they're still debating, or still pretending as if like it's actually relevant. So yeah, it's like, that pisses me off, especially when it comes to Undertaker too. It pisses him off as well. It pisses me off too, because look at the state. Look at of how it's not just wrestling. Look at how everything is everything is political. Everything is a root ground for propaganda. Nothing is organic or creative anymore. Nothing is looked at as art. Everything is political. Everything is sensitive. People can't take what they hear. And it's like, how can you escape? How can wrestling be any good? How can, like I said, never say never, of course, but it's like, how can you see wrestling improve when it's simply, when you look at, as what, especially in this, certain context, seeing as someone like MJF or Seth Rollins, look at what they're doing, a Johnny Gargano, and you see them what they're doing on Twitter, and especially when they portray the characters that they supposedly portray. But you look to see their social media and what they're doing all over Twitter or social media in general, and it's like, yeah, it's like you look at that, oh, this dude is a fraud. Wrestling is a joke, and it's like we have to not, we can't we can't throw this under the bus any longer. This is a big contributing factor. And it's as the title reads. Wrestlers are trash because wrestling is trash because wrestlers are trash. And you know why? Well, just look. Just look all over. Look at how they're acting. Look at how they're putting themselves in a light. And it's like, how can you continue to support that? How can you continue to have any hope if nothing seems to be improving? Oh, sorry about that if you heard that. But I'll leave it to y'all. Lord Cosmo, of course. I have other business to attend to, and I'm gonna see y'all out.